Hello everyone, it is Jazz here. Today I thought I would do a short thoughts on current reads video because I didn't get to do one last month because February was so short and it went by so fast. So I thought I would do one right now. I've started 3 new reads. I have a couple of old ones, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those. And let's jump into talking about all this stuff. The couple of old reads that I've kind of mentioned in previous videos and don't really have any new thoughts on are, of course, the book What Every Christian Ought to Know by Adrienne Rogers and Morte, the author, by Sir Thomas Malory. Now you can watch some of my previous short thoughts on current reads if you want to hear about this one and this one, but I'm really just going to talk about the books that I have just recently started in March, so I'm going to move on. Just wanted to let you know that I'm still reading these. The first book I'm going to chat about is The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, and this is something that a lot of people are probably a little bit familiar of because it has been adapted into movies, although this is definitely different than the movies, and I knew that going in just because it is a collection of short stories. Some of them do have to do with the character Mowgli that we are familiar with, but some of them also are not necessarily related. I do believe that I did read the story in here, Rikki Tikki Tavi, which I read a lot of excerpts and things for school and high school, and I think that was one of them. I don't really remember it very well, so I'll be intrigued to revisit that. And I am about 50 pages into this, so I'm on around the second short story. So far, I have been really enjoying it. I have found this book strangely just very, very relaxing to read, and I think that is kind of the poetical vibe there is to the writing. Now, this does include poetry in it, as well as stories, and the stories also have kind of a poetic kind of writing style. There are surprisingly, though, a lot of these and thous instead of yous included in this, which has given me a giggle because it is set in the jungle, but I guess it's the poetical vibe that Kipling was going for, so I guess, you know, we're gonna let him have it. The only thing I'm kind of unsure about with this book is I think the structure of it is gonna be a little odd just because of the way the short stories tell certain parts of the story and the way the short stories are set up, so we'll see what I think of that when I finish the book in its entirety, but so far, I found it very entertaining. Next book I'm going to chat about is A Long, Long Sleep by Anna Sheehan, which is the first book in what I believe is called the Unicorp series. So this is supposed to be kind of a retelling of the Sleeping Beauty tale set in a sci-fi futuristic kind of world. So in the little bit that I've read of it, the main character, Rose, is somebody that has been in a cryosleep in a basement for 60 years, and then this young man wakes her up, and then she kind of has to deal with the fact that she's been asleep for 60 years. Now, I have had this book for a long, long time, probably since 2011 when this book came out, and the premise of this does really intrigue me, but at the same time, I have always been sort of reluctant to read it because I just wasn't sure if I was going to like it. And I have to say that I've read 25 pages of this book and I'm still not sure I'm going to like it. Now, there's a chance that this book could just be okay. And sometimes it's fun to read books that are just okay. I'm just not sure I'm particularly in the mood to read a book that's just okay right now. Like, I feel like I'm in a like it or love it mode, not a just okayness mode. I feel like the execution of the world building isn't gonna be great right now. Some of the elements of it are kind of silly and some of them are not particularly detailed enough, and I have a lot of questions about them. And I'm also not sure if I was reading and just missed them because I read 10 pages of this and immediately forgot those 10 pages or kind of what happened in those 10 pages like a few hours later. Yeah, I might not be as invested in this as, you know, I really, really want to be. However, the characters aren't bad. They're looking like they're kind of being kind of stereotypical YA characters, but that's not necessarily like a horrible thing. So I don't see this book being like truly bad, and I feel like I've owned it so long that I'm going to at least give it maybe a good like 50 to 100 pages before I decide if I'm going to DNF it or not. So I might not finish this, but I also might just continue to give it a chance. The only thing that's kind of making me like, I don't know if I'm gonna like want to mess with this is that now this book is part of a series, which it wasn't when I bought it. I think if I'd known when I bought it that it was gonna be a series, I probably wouldn't have bought it because I'm not like a huge series reader, so I don't know that I would want to commit if I only think this book is okay. The last book that I'm going to chat about today is my reread of Angela's Ashes, a memoir by Frank McCourt. I'm listening to this in audiobook, which I also did the first time when I experienced this book. I listened to it in audiobook. I actually did think that the second time that I would read it in print because I had already listened to the audiobook, but I love that audiobook so much because it is read by Frank McCourt and I love how he read it, and so I wanted to just read it again that way. Now, one thing that has been added since I last listened to it in audiobook is the book now has a new introduction, or I don't actually know how new it is, but a introduction done by Jeanette Wells, I want to say is her name. I'll write it on the screen if I said the wrong person's name, I apologize. But she has written an introduction for this, and it was really interesting. It gave some really interesting insights into Frank McCourt as well as the book, and also it kind of made me want to read some of his other books, which I've never read before. The main thing that I enjoyed about this the first time is the main thing that I enjoy about it now is that even though this book is super sad and that he had a really tough growing up experience, he manages to somehow make this book hilarious in a lot of places. You kind of realize that if sad stuff happens, you got to figure out a way to kind of laugh about it. And I think that Frank McCourt definitely figured out that, and he put that into the book, that there's kind of a fine line between like tragedy and humor, and he kind of mashes them together, and it actually makes the book like an enjoyable read, even though it could not be because it is sad. I've forgotten a lot of the events that happened to him, so I'm intrigued to revisit those and remember what happened with all of that, and I am really enjoying it a second time. So those were some of my thoughts on my current reads. And an additional note, I'm planning on filming a question and answer video probably at the end of this week, so get your questions in the comments. And that is it for today. Thank you for watching, my fabulous peeps. I will see you all later. Bye.